Why?
Why?
If you
Why?
have T-Mobile 5G home internet, you might be hearing this
Why?
a lot.
Why?
Every time your internet slows down during the busiest hours.
Why?
Why?
Because your network gives priority to cell phone users.
Why?
Good question. Why not switch to Cox Internet with 2 times faster download speeds than T-Mobile 5G home internet during peak hours?
Okay.
Stop the whys and visit cox.com/5G home for details. T-Mobile prioritizes certain T-Mobile phone users over home internet users during times of congestion.
Hello and welcome to the Paddock and the Pavilion with Stephen Wallace. In each show, Stephen will interview someone connected to the world of horse racing or cricket.
In episode 4 of What Was It Like To, I spoke to Neil Graham, who in late August 1988 took over the licence to train horses for the Queen at our West Ilsley stables in Berkshire. What was it like to train for the Queen?
Well, it was an honour to train for her, but probably practically, she's such a knowledgeable horsewoman, and she's so enthusiastic about the horses, and her background knowledge, of the horses' pedigrees, the families she owns. It makes her a very interested owner. She's interested in the horses and themselves, and as individuals, as characters, and she has a very valid opinion on many aspects of them. So it makes her a joy to train for, really.
And how did it all come about that you trained for the Queen?
Well, it was a bit of a long story. It was during the time when Dick Hearn, he'd had his hunting accident in the early 1980s. But he fell seriously ill in 1988 and was taken into hospital, and there was some concern for a while that he may not survive. But I think at that stage, the Jockey Club were particularly concerned that, as he held the license, that if something were to go wrong, that somebody needed to be held responsible, for whatever was happening. And I think at the time I was the obvious person to be held responsible. So the license was transferred into my name for that autumn of 1988.
Because you'd been training in America before then, is that right?
Yes, I'd been with Ian Balding for about 5 years as assistant, and one of Ian's owners had asked me to go over to America with an idea to train probably in the Midwest, because it was the time when Shug McGahey and Bill Mott had moved to go and train on the West Coast for the Ogden Phipps family and for Bert Firestone, and they felt there was a sort of gap in the Midwest, and they asked me if I was interested in going over there. So I went over there and was actually just spending some time with John Gosden when he was in California, just to learn the ropes over there when I was asked to come back. So that's how it came about.
And you mentioned the Queen's interest in racing, which is well known. Can you give us some examples? Did she come to the gallops and visit the horses on a regular basis?
Yeah, she would come to the gallops fairly regularly, and also to evening stables. She loved to come in the morning and see the horses out, at exercise, particularly on gallop mornings, because they're the most interesting. And but if she came for evening stables, she didn't just come and look at her own horses. She liked to go and look at every horse in the yard, and would ask questions about pedigrees, what a sire's progeny were like, and questions like that, really.
And when a horse ran, did she want to know how it ran, and also when she went racing on the day's racing?
Yes, she would. Yes. No, she'd be very interested. Had to report to her afterwards how the horse had got on, what the jockey had said, and therefore what the thoughts for the future may be about, going, trip, likely standard of race in which the horse could run and might win, just questions like that, really.
You trained some winners for the Queen. What's it like on race day when you train a winner for her?
I think there was only one occasion that she actually came racing, and that was when a horse called Hall of Mirrors won. And I think she'd had some sort of function in Newmarket in the morning. And so I had 2 runners for her that afternoon. And so she came and had lunch and watched the 2 horses. I don't remember what happened to the other one, but Hall of Mirrors duly won, and she was absolutely delighted.
You must get a lot of crowd support when you've got a jockey in the Queen's silks riding for you.
Yes. Well, I mean, it's coming up to the Platinum Jubilee now, but, she's still I think she's held in great affection by people. She's been such a wonderful monarch. She's had such great longevity, isn't she? And I think people genuinely love her.
And what jockeys rode for you for the Queen when you were training for her?
Well, Willie Carson would have predominantly ridden the horses. Brian Proctor used to sometimes ride the sort of second string horses. So I forget exactly, but Willie would have certainly ridden by far the majority of them. Yes, definitely.
And in a much broader sense, with her now owning horses for over 70 years, how important has she been to British racing and to the world of racing?
Those families that she's, of the horses that she's racing, they've been in royal ownership, for generations, an awfully long time. I know she has bought into some new families, but some of those older families, they've been there a long time. And it's wonderful to have that sense of continuity in the pedigrees. And there are obviously fewer and fewer of those sort of large owner breeders left anymore, certainly English ones. So I think that sort of sense of continuity is marvellous for English racing and something we should cherish.
And you must have gone to Sandringham Stud on many occasions when you were training for her.
Yes, probably not so much when I was always training, because we're often quite busy with the horses. But through the years, I certainly have been to Sandringham quite a few times. Yes, to see the horses. Yes.
And during that 1988 period, you also trained the winner of the St. Leger, Minster's son. Was that your most memorable day training?
Yes, I think it was. Yes. He'd won the Gordon Stakes, Glorious Goodwood, before that. And he'd always looked like he would relish that sort of extra trip. I remember in particularly that the ground had been quite quick at Doncaster that week, and Minster's son particularly liked quite fast ground. But we used to fly to the races with Willie Carson in his own plane, and we were flying up there that day, and the rain, I remember, was absolutely pelting down onto the aeroplane as we went there. And Willie was cursing. He was so upset and annoyed because he thought it might alter the going and therefore Minster's son's chances. But anyway, and actually I remember during the race, he Diminuendo, sort of 2 out, looked as if she was crawling all over the top of the horses. But we got to the furlong marker and she just started to weaken, and she just didn't really stay that day. And Minster's son outstayed her and went past her. But, so it was a great victory, particularly to win a classic for any trainer. It's the pinnacle.
Well, thank you, Neil, for joining me on your "What Was It Like To" moment. You must look back with pride at being a trainer for the Queen, especially now as we look forward to the Platinum Jubilee Derby, which we all hope she will be there to watch.
Yeah, definitely. As I said, she's somebody that I certainly hold in great esteem and affection, and I think she's wonderful for the country. And I would have nothing but the highest praise for her, and it was certainly a great honour for me. Yes.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure.
During his time at West Ilsley, Neil trained Nashwan to win the Red Oaks Autumn Stakes at Ascot, Prince of Dance to win the Dewhurst Stakes, El Harib to win the William Hill Futurity Stakes, and as Neil said, Minster's son to win the St. Leger. Neil also trained 7 winners for the Queen. Dick Hearn returned to train for the Queen at the beginning of the 1989 season, alongside Neil as his assistant. The following year, Neil moved to Coronation Stables Newmarket to set up on his own. Neil finished training at Coronation Stables in 2004 before he moved to Godolphin as second trainer to Saeed bin Surur. Following a heart attack in 2008, he had to leave Godolphin. Neil has worked for Chelmsford City Racecourse since it opened in 2015 and is now their Director of Racing.
Thank you for listening to The Paddock and the Pavilion. You can download the show on Apple Podcasts,
Amazon Music,
SoundCloud, Stitcher and Spotify.
Follow us on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram at The Pad and Pav. Don't forget, if you like the show, please do leave us a rating and review.
Sports Social Podcast Network.
Ah, the sizzle of McDonald's sausage. It's enough to make you crave your favorite breakfasts. Enough to head over to McDonald's. Enough to make you really wish this commercial were scratch and sniff.
And if you're a sausage person, now get 2 satisfyingly savory sausage McGriddles, sausage biscuits, or sausage burritos for just $3.33. Or mix and match. Price and participation may vary. Cannot be combined with any other offer or combo meal. Single item at regular price.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.